morning, everybody. It is March 20, 2024. It's 10 a.m. We're ready for our City Commission meeting. Let's start with a roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
And Commissioner Clayton is absent.
Very good. We do have a quorum. So welcome everybody here and watching on social media or listening. Either way, we just want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Greg Hall from Life Mission Church. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to read from the scriptures before I pray. From Proverbs chapter 2, it says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding, and he stores up sound wisdom for the upright, and he is in fact a shield to those who walk in integrity." So with those promises, let's pray. Lord, we are so grateful that you love to lead and guide us and to give us wisdom. And I thank you for the men and women who are a part of this commission, who serve in the capacity they do, God, to make decisions, difficult decisions at times, tough decisions, to be a blessing to this community. And I pray your blessing upon them, God, as they look to make those decisions. Blessings that will please you and that will be a blessing to this community. We thank you for your presence and your love for us. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Hall. Appreciate that. Okay, we will start our meeting with public comments. Do we have public comments?
Yes, we have one.
Okay.
Bob Brandt.
Okay. Come on up to the podium if you could. Let me just read this first. We've got some things to follow here. Subject to the above restrictions, persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items on the agenda may do so when that item is called. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items not on the agenda that are under the jurisdiction of the City Commission may do so at this time, when called upon by myself, the mayor. Comments on personnel matters and matters pending in court or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any presentation is for information purposes only. The governing body will take these comments under advisement. And if you can go and give us your name and address, and we'll get you started.
Yes, my name is Bob Brandt at 840 South Borough.
Okay.
And I have asked many times to get the 25 tires picked up at 845 9th Street, but to no avail. I have tried to get the king mattress and various garbage against the deck at 901 Walton picked up, but to no avail. And I was wondering why the city is ignoring its own codes.
Okay, Mr. Branton, what we'll do is, are you finished or anything more to add to that?
No.
I'll just let you know that we'll just look into this and see what we can do, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible on that. So we have certain ordinances and restrictions in town, and we'll certainly see that we're adhering to all of them. So we will have to get back with you. Can you leave your name and number, your number somewhere at City Hall here, and we'll give you a call back.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your comments. We'll go on to item number 7. We don't have anything there, I guess. We'll proceed on to consent agenda. We have the minutes from the March 6, 2024 City Commission meeting. We have February 24 financial report. We also have the agenda approval to consider. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on that? We'll just all voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll go on to item number 9. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Seeing none, and we have no unfinished business unless someone wants to bring something up at that point. We'll just move on to new business, please.
Item A, donation by Power of the Past Antique Engine and Tractor Association.
The association has offered to donate $50,000 to build an additional shelter house at Forest Park. And I guess Director Hafley, I almost said Dr. Hafley, it is Doctor, isn't it? We'll call you Director Hafley.
No, it's not doctor. I do have 2 cousins that are doctors, so.
Oh, okay, well, there you
By
go.
association.
Close enough.
Yeah, okay. Well, good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As the lead into this said, the Tractor Club is here to offer a donation of $50,000 to build a shelter house in Forest Park. Just a little bit of background, a little bit of info about the Power of the Past. This year marks the 29th annual tractor show and antique engine show. This club started with a handful of enthusiasts for antique tractors and antique engines. And the show has grown quite a bit over the years too. This is the second or third national show that you guys, third national show that's been held here in Ottawa. And the good thing about this is the club donates something to the city every year after the show, whether that's for new parking bumpers, tables, benches, whatever. But this year, they've come forward with a $50,000 donation. Next slide. In consultation with the Tractor Club, you can see an aerial overhead of of Forest Park. That little yellow square there kind of denotes where the idea for the shelter is. We have looked at this. We can put a shelter there without having to remove any trees. And can you go back? There we go. The reason for this location is it works really well especially for the show this year with the national show, and they're really wanting to see if this can't be built yet this year. Now we can go to the next slide. This is a rendering of the shelter house that we've kind of looked at. It's much like the one that the Rotary Club put up in Kansas Park. So the difference is the colors. Since all the shelter houses in Forest Park are either have wood siding or brick, we felt that the brown siding with the dark roof would match down there a lot better.
Is this a pole barn or an actual shelter?
It's
like a pole barn.
It's like a pole barn with concrete floor. The amount of money that they're donating will also cover getting electricity to it, lights, and water. And we do have a couple of representatives here from the Tractor Club, David Reeves and Brett Hunsberger. So I'm going to turn it over and let them say a few words, and we'll go from there.
I'm David Reeves, and we've like Mike was saying, we've donated every year, and we had a member that passed away a few years ago and left us some money, and then this year we got a grant from the Raymond and Marguerite Gibson Foundation of $10,000, and so we talked with them, and they thought this would be a good project to spend the money on because of the it'll be out to the community. Anybody in the community can use it. We need it for 3 days a year, and the rest of the time it's for the community. And that'll have a cement floor, sidewalk to it, and in the $50,000 it'll put 8 picnic tables under it. We had I think would you say $9,000 for the 8 tables, or close, right in there. And anyway, we wanted to do that, and but we also want to put a sign up by it, and that would say, I don't know, it's up for debate on what size, but like a 2-foot by 3-foot tall metal sign. Have it cut out of 1/4-inch metal so that it can't be tore up, and have on it like donated by Power of the Past, and then a picture of a tractor cut out, and then in memory of Terry Wolford in 2024, because we've told him that we wanted to recognize him because this is what makes it possible. And we'd just like to have it, and it would you know, it'd help us this year greatly, because with this national show this year, we have to furnish them a hospitality tent and then a massive vendor tent. And we can take the picnic tables out of that and make their vendor area, so that just the Massey people, and that, I mean, it'll cost us $1,000 to rent a tent. And so this would help us on that. And, you know, without your park, we couldn't have a show. And we want to give back. You know, I mean, the whole community supports us. And so that's about all I got.
And everybody loves the park
Yep,
for the shade.
yep. I mean, that park is a asset to this town. It's, you know, we get more compliments on the park every year. So, thank you, guys.
Well, listen, thank you both for this, and I appreciate very much the donation here. I think about this park too, and you're right, we are the envy of many communities our size when we come into the month of September, and you guys are certainly a large part of that Power of the Past, and so we really do thank you for that. I'm glad we don't have to remove any trees. I guess it's not in the flight path of any disc golf players, except maybe yours truly. It should be okay.
Since you brought that up, Mayor, there is one tee box that will have to be moved.
That's fine.
But-
Hope we bring it closer to the basket, would you, please?
I believe I'm going to instruct DJ to make sure it's farther, just for you.
I appreciate that.
Just for you.
Gentlemen, I do really thank you again for this great gift.
Director Hafley, I got a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I know you guys have had lots of conversations, I'm assuming, about location and everything.
Yes.
This would be in the southwest corner, pretty much, of the park. We have the concrete pad in the northeast corner, where the building was torn down, that we used to use for storage. Is that an option to make those dollars stretch a little farther?
So two things for that, Mr. Commissioner.
Last year.
Thank you. Realistically, honestly, that concrete is cracked. It needs to come out. I wouldn't feel right putting a new building or a shelter house over top of it. Secondly, that part of the park is not used by the Tractor Club for the show. So if we put it up there, it really wouldn't be of good use to them.
And I appreciate those answers, not only from my knowledge, but just for anybody who may be listening about why we didn't utilize that area.
Sure.
Second of all, and you may have answered this, what size would that building be?
I did not.
Okay,
So thank you for asking. 30 by 40.
okay, thank you.
I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Crowley was just asking. So can you tell us how that rivals in size to the large shelter building that we have in the middle of the park?
Pretty close. I don't know.
Okay,
I've never measured it.
okay.
And I know we had looked at that location to the east and to the south of that current parking area as well for potential location for the structure, as well as proximity to existing utilities and shortening the run. And it also discussed the potential for receiving a cash donation to then augment that in the CIP process to craft something that was more in line with that permanent brick and wood structure as opposed to the metal and the Morton type pole barn approach. But if this is what's been presented, and we certainly appreciate the benefit and the kickoff that this neat show provides to the community. So, you know, we want to work to make something that's useful and practical and certainly benefits the community and the event that we use to draw folks in from not just locally but from around the country. And it's also kind of the kickoff for the following week with the car show. So it's a good 2-week span of activity in and around the park that's heavily utilized. So.
Thank you. Yes, good points. I wonder, and I ask about the size and it rivaling the size of our large shelter house, because currently this time, I mean, you can reserve a large shelter for family events, for community events, for any kind of event, really.
Sure.
And so do we anticipate adding that to our list of facilities or our
Yes.
list of places in which that they can be reserved for
Yes.
larger events? Okay.
Yes. Provided they don't interfere with the tractor show.
Yes, I understand that. I do want to appreciate the gentleman from Power of the Past and really honoring a member of your club that has passed away, and how nice that you're actually bringing his name up and that honoring him in this way and bringing this idea to us. So thank you.
With that, the Gibson Foundation, we certainly know what they've done in our community, so all over town, so many donations they've made. So coupled with that, yes, you're right. Appreciate your donation and also the Gibson Foundation for what they're doing for our community as well. So thank you, guys. You know, I think about this Power of the Past, some people don't realize how much work goes involved in organizing and planning this thing, and a lot of work goes on behind the scenes that we don't see. And I just want to give you guys credit for what you do and your team, because that's a lot of work, and we appreciate your continuing to bring this event to our community. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
I do have something, but, I mean,
You want to come to the podium there? Yeah.
Well,
Michael talked about also the parking right there. And you've got, around that curve to the north is a long parking area, and then right in that corner has got a little bit of parking. And they talked about maybe expanding that to wrap it on around the corner. And we don't think, it's gonna take a lot of this 50,000 to do our building and do the upgrades and everything right there. But, once we give you this, if you guys wanna use whatever's left, like next year, if you can do it, put it in that parking area, help pay on that. I mean, because we've got a check here for 50,000, and from what Mike had told us, it will go into an account, and then the building will be built out of that, and everything will be designated on this account.
Okay.
And so, like I said, if you have some left, it's great with us if you'd want to use it maybe on the parking the next year. But one thing some of our members wanted to know, and I asked Mike about it, or the insurance. You guys, after it's donated, you will insure it, and if wind blows it away, put it back. I mean, don't pocket our $50,000 and run. But you know what I'm saying? It would be city property, and taken care of that way.
Very good. We'll do that.
So,
Absolutely. Necessary.
do you need to approve this before I give this to you, or?
I love taking money anytime without it, but we'll go ahead and go to motion here. Let's go ahead and get a motion to
Okay.
get this for, I guess you're right. His motion on item number, what is this, number 11? Oh,
Mr.
yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
I just want to clarify, the law around donations and the donor's intent is fairly critical. And so you've heard the city manager talk about utilizing this money to build a shelter house in the park, ideally in this location, but maybe in a slightly different form that is more congruent with the other shelters in the park. And you've also seen a rendering of a possible shelter. And so as you make this motion and receive this donation, I think it's good to clarify, are we talking about taking the donation and building a shelter that is congruent with the other shelter houses? Or are we talking about building this structure with that 50,000? So the motion just needs to be very clear so all parties are on the same page. It may not look exactly like that if you take the first course. If you take the second course, it will be built to look like that elevation. So
That's a good point. Now, there's another shelter house not that far away from this, a little bit to the north and west, I believe. And yeah, I'd like to see them looking similar around the pattern we want around our park. So what you're saying, if it would cost more than this, would be we willing to fund that difference? Is that?
I think that's a part of the ongoing conversation with the CIP and with Parks Improvement. And I think it's fine to take a donation to build a shelter house in the park.
Okay.
I just think the commission should be very clear with the tractor show that may not be what the final product looks like, but the intention is to use that 50,000 to build a shelter house in the park, and to try to roughly get to the size that they need for the use that they are proposing. But there may be additional funds that go with that to make it look more like the other shelter houses in the park and less like something that's new and different.
Okay. Yeah, before we, David, are you agreeable to that?
Yeah, we have checked in on, like, putting sidewalls, 3-foot sidewalls around it. The park guys have said they like the open design, keeps some of the people out of there, and the leaves and all will blow out of it better than if you had walls to enclose it. And to put a 3-foot wall with fake brick around it would have cost another $20,000.
Yeah.
So we are fine with an open design if it's all right with you guys.
Okay. Very good.
No, I'm looking at Mr.
I-
Crowley, I'm like, it's gonna go, one of us is gonna talk.
Well, and I think this is a great idea, and I certainly want to move forward with it. My concern is, I don't want to either upset the power of the past by not giving you what you're expecting, or on the flip side, have to build something that's excessively higher than the $50,000 that we would possibly be accepting today. So I don't know if anybody's really looked into it, of building something of similar size, similar look to what we already have, and putting a dollar figure at that first before accepting this money to say, I mean, because if they come back and say that's a $250,000 building and we have to come up with $200,000, I just, that's a hard pill to swallow. But then do we step back and say, okay, then maybe we're not really, it's not important enough for us to make it look like the other one and give the power of the past what they want. That's my concern.
Great points, and I appreciate the clarity that was brought to this conversation by our city attorney. I hope, Mr. Reeves, that this isn't the first time that you've had this conversation about that, that this may need to look like congruent, so that everything looks the same kind of in the park. I know that obviously you and your entire Power of the Past team and club certainly enjoy the park, and you want it to look congruent too. But it does seem like there's a few more questions. I want you to know that I'm absolutely in favor of honoring your member that has passed on, in really creating more space for people to gather in our parks, which are amazing. And I think that there's just a few more questions too that we can answer. I'm completely not against this. I'm completely in favor of it. Just a few more questions. We just want to make sure that you understand that the aesthetics of it may need to look a little bit different. So it's not the first time you've had this conversation, right?
No.
Okay. You may be just tired of the conversation at this point. Sometimes we do that and go on and on and on about things.
Well, I guess I would ask conditions you want to place on this donation if we were to accept it today.
Well, we would just like to.
Oh, go ahead.
We'd just like to get the shelter house going so that we can have it by September. And, as far as the looking different, the one you've got to the north is a wood structure all the way. And this isn't going to be that much different than that. It'll be all open, and it will have, the poles will be wrapped with metal to keep all well, you're not going to keep them all, but keep people from cutting the poles out of it and all that. And we've what have we got, like a $29,000 bid to put up this shelter?
Yeah, so we got a quote from QSI for this exact building, which is where we got the rendering, and it was for a little over $29,000 just for the building, not including the electric, the water, and the benches. So we felt we needed to have something to show you when we came to present this, so that's what we've done.
So we do have a very talented staff here, and we are very fortunate that oftentimes our staff can kind of step in and help with the building of things like this. And is that the case in this particular? Electricity? Yeah, I mean, all of it. Any of that is going to be helped by city staff? Or we're going to do all outside contractors?
I have not talked to the utilities department about that piece of it yet, but I think that we could probably do some of that in-house.
Well, along
Dan
that-
says yes.
I'm looking at Dan, I'm like, Dan?
Dan says yes.
Okay. Yeah, Attorney.
I think it might help the commission and the good folks at Power of the Past. If you gave this a week, let me do a short memorandum of agreement to support this donation that kind of clarifies that we will be using the money for a shelter. We've got some latitude on design and working to keep costs down, obviously using staff if we can. But to give effect to what the donors want and the concerns raised by the city manager, I think some on the commission, that we want the park to look as good as we possibly can and not let the improvements be dictated by maybe the size of donations, but dictated by what works within our park system and is best for all of the public. And we use this generous donation as a springboard to that. And I think having something, it doesn't have to be long, but just a short memorandum of understanding between the parties would really help and let future commissioners in your boat or whoever's sitting in my seat be able to look back and say this is what they intended.
All right. Gentlemen, would you be willing to come back to another city commission meeting? I hate to ask you to come back with this. I hate to turn the money away. I've never done that. We can hold it. Okay. You can put a hold on it. All right. I can do that. I just kind of feel like we're talking this thing to death. But I realize in my experience in consulting with my bank attorney, it's always better to listen to him rather than me jump ahead and do something I shouldn't do maybe. But I hope you understand this is kind of a complicated issue. But at the same time, I just soon take the money and start the shed tomorrow. But that's my position. But I'm just one. How's the rest of the commission feel about our suggestion from our city attorney?
Yeah,
Got it?
That's great.
I think
Yeah.
we wait and
Good.
get some more information from him.
Okay, I guess we're going to do that. So gentlemen, again, thank you for being here this morning, and you didn't turn out quite the way I thought it was going to, but nonetheless, that's how council, we're all that same way. But again, this doesn't diminish the appreciation we have for the gift, so please look forward to you coming back. All right?
You bet.
And you can stay for the entire meeting if you want to, so we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, but anyway.
I'll be out of here.
Okay. I don't blame
We
you.
appreciate the
Okay.
honesty.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. I guess we'll go on to item number, where are we at here? B? Yeah.
Item B, Mulberry and Dundee intersection improvement.
After a bid and review process, BG Consultants recommended the project be awarded to Kane Construction Services, LLC, with a bid amount $100,379.47. Hope I pronounced that right, Kane?
I think so.
Pretty close, all right.
Okay, so with this project, we're recommending to approve the low bid. Can we go to the next slide? Oh, go back to the beginning of this presentation. So I wanted to point this out as one of the reason, or the main reason why we need to improve this. If you'll see, we've got a curb inlet right there next to that big rock. We have a big issue with semi traffic in this area because of the, well, not only Kalmar, but trucks going to the North Industrial area also use this route. So if we go to the next slide, please. Here's what we found Monday morning. Somebody cut that intersection short. It completely blew the top off, put the rock in the inlet, and we've had the rocks there for, I think, about 4 years.
This is a several times a month occurrence for
Yes.
you guys. It's not just, this isn't an aberration.
Yeah, it just so happened that we were able to capture a picture Monday morning when the guys came to work. So let's forward to a couple of slides here. Next slide. So I've already explained this, most of this, but the project entails increasing this radius from a 20-foot radius to a 50-foot radius. It also eliminates the curb inlet with a flume going down to the ditch. So we're eliminating, number one, we're eliminating a tight turn, increasing the turn radius, and number two, we're eliminating a curb inlet. So next slide, please. And I just explained that one. So next slide. Funds for this project were included in the capital improvements portion of the stormwater fund this year for $175,000. Next slide, please. We're again recommending the low bid from Kane Construction, as previously stated, for the amount of, crap, where'd it go? $100,739.47. And I'll stand for any questions.
Michael, that intersection was built, we don't know when, but I have a feeling Calmar wasn't Calmar. It's probably Ottawa Truck in a very limited capacity.
Probably.
Traffic was
And it could have been, that intersection could have been there prior to Ottawa Truck.
even Ottawa Truck. That's what I was thinking about. So expanding from 20 to 50 feet radius is pretty good size. Should be no problem after that, right?
It shouldn't be, plus eliminating the curb inlet, it's really going to eliminate the problem.
Unless I'm driving the truck, but it shouldn't be a problem, so good.
And it's a residential street with the standard radius of a residential street being 25 feet versus a commercial area, which is ultimately what that is, with a design of roughly 50 feet.
That's
So
good.
we're essentially redesigning that area for the traffic that's there and has been there for some time.
Good. All right.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned it's a residential street, because across the street, we have boulders that are similar.
We do.
And in neighbors' yards that are sometimes damaged by these trucks too. So that would
That's true.
hopefully alleviate some of those issues.
Yes, we should be, at the conclusion of this project, we should be able to remove all of those big rocks.
On this, do we have an idea or the ability for our staff to do this? Kind of looking at it, it's road work, stormwater, that we have crews who do this similar work in different capacities. Would that be something that we could do in-house?
At what cost? What projects do you want me to put on hold to do that, Commissioner?
We don't have the current resources, both for equipment and staffing, to be able to do that. But I know that's something we've talked about long-term, is increasing the capability and capacity for this kind of maintenance, ongoing, non-new construction type of projects. But right now, we simply don't have the equipment or the staffing resources to do that.
On this, would we be able to use, I know we had some leftover funds from street repair last year. Would we be able to use some of those funds for this as well? 'Cause I think we had close to this amount left in the 250 from last year.
Well, the 250 is used for, and we've transitioned from projects to pavement preservation, because what we're trying to maximize with our street fund is protecting the assets that we have, and then utilizing capital projects for that 40-year redesign, or for specific instances like this where it's a residential configuration but there's heavy commercial use, so it needs to essentially be reformatted to meet the current traffic flow. And so if we were to do that, what would be being spread across many streets to safeguard the surface to prevent weather from getting into the base ultimately, we're essentially then consolidating it down to roughly one intersection or several city blocks and ignoring the rest of our system. So what we're trying to do is transition that special streets fund to spreading it as far as we can, and using initially a triage system, so that we're saying, okay, what is it that if we take care of that now, it's going to last the 40+ years before we have to really consider a full depth reconstruction? Or do we, look at filling those gaps in the meantime with some site-specific projects and transitioning to that capital rotation and how we look at the funding, and that's something that we've all discussed and we're still continuing to look at. But we want to avoid the knock-on effect, meaning if we take capital dollars, which are predominantly tax or participation with KDOT, to and utilize a different, say, general fund revenue that goes into streets or CIP, what's that effect? What hole does that cause someplace else? And so that's kind of where we're at and looking at right now. So it's probably still a year out before we can, for the 26 budget, is what I would expect, where we might
I
be
guess
able
my
to.
question is, we didn't use the full 250 last year. We said that was going back into the fund.
Well, this was originally, yes. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Melanie.
I guess that's my question, that money was earmarked for streets.
Well,
It
And is
was,
it-
you're correct,
capital.
and what you're talking about is in the special highway
Mhm.
fund, and this is a stormwater project largely.
Okay.
And the added benefit of doing the stormwater project is the streets,
Melanie,
changes that you'll
Mhm.
see, they're gonna improve that area, so this one will be funded by the stormwater fund, and it was planned that way and budgeted that way. What you're talking about are the extra dollars remaining for special highway and those street improvements that, Manager Sokot was talking about. That extra 100,000 from last year, that's a special revenue fund. It goes into the fund balance for that same fund and just continues to stay there until it's used and planned for those improvements that he's talking about. So
Okay.
you'll see those funds used towards other street improvement projects that would otherwise not have a funding source. But this one's funded from the stormwater fund.
Thank you.
Good. Good question, Commissioner. Any other comments on this or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve item 11B on our agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? I will point out, Kilo Construction is a local vendor and did quote on this, and they were not the low bidder. And I know that sometimes people will wonder why we don't use local vendors. Well, we do use Kilo quite a bit.
We
and
do.
We ultimately have a fiduciary responsibility to get the best bang for our buck from our citizens' taxes. And so that's the reason we're going with the lower bid on this motion. So any other comments or questions? If not, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Hard work on that. Good. We'll move on to item C.
Resolution for an expanded investment policy.
A resolution adopting an expanded investment policy for the city. It is also establishes an effective date, provides for enforcement, and rescinds prior resolutions. And we have Rebecca McCurdy on for us. Rebecca,
Hi, good morning.
good morning.
As Mayor Skidmore read, I'm here to talk about a resolution for expanded investment authority. Today, I just want to discuss the resolution that's being proposed, and then I'll come back again next week. So a little background for you. There's a Kansas State statute, 12-1675, that authorizes public idle fund investment for municipalities, counties, and school boards. So the current city investment policy was adopted in 2016, and it allows the city to invest our idle funds in direct obligations of the United States or secure investments such as certificates of deposit, money market accounts, in the CEDARS program, or in the Kansas Municipal Investment Pool. And it limits the investments to a maximum of 2 years or less. The staff currently has been doing some researches on best practices through the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, and best practice guides through the Pooled Investment Board, which is the board that oversees KMIP, just for people who don't spend all their time doing this. And there's a Kansas State statute that is 12-1677B, which authorizes municipalities to pursue what they call expanded investment authorities, which is what we're going to talk about today. And all this does is allow cities to invest in directly themselves in U.S. Treasuries, and it expands investment terms from 2 years or less to 4 years or less. I did include here in the PowerPoint and in the memo a list of municipalities around us that already have expanded authority, just for a reference. And And then I just want to outline the process for getting expanded investment authority. So step one is to draft a policy, just like we have here in your agenda today. I have to come present it to you. Then if you approve, you adopt it. And then the staff of the city will submit it, the resolution, to the PMIB, so that's the Pooled Investment Board, with required supporting documentation for review. With the supporting documentation, which is in the memo, but just in case people don't want to read it, it's you also have to include projected monthly average portfolio size, anticipated maturity disbursements, and your expected yield to maturity of the portfolio. And then the resolution is taken in front of the Pooled Investment Board at a monthly meeting, and they either grant or deny expanded powers. And then if they do grant them, you have to have an annual review from them. Financial impacts of this. So adoption of this proposed policy will allow the city some additional investment opportunities and grant us some opportunities to best use idle funds. Legally, our city attorney has reviewed the resolution as to form, and as I said earlier, we're recommending no action at this time, just here for discussion. So with that, I'll stand for discussion.
Okay. Any questions of Rebecca on this? I'll just say this whole agenda is exciting to me. I circled this date a week ago. I couldn't believe all the stuff. We're going to talk about flood. We're going to talk about investment policy.
I did say, I think it's Mayor Skidmore agenda day.
It is. I would agree with that totally. And I do agree with your thinking here. Now, this doesn't necessarily or necessitate us to go out 4 years, but allows for that potential if we see a recommended or a good investment opportunity to take advantage of. When rates are going down, which we think they will be this year and next year, it's good to go longer term on any of our idle funds, and so this gives us a latitude and another tool, something in our toolbox that we can have some access to. So I think it's a great idea what we're doing here, just for my own opinion on that. But any other discussion from the other commissioners?
Ditto.
I'll have you speak next time. I'll say that. That sounds great. But anyway, you want to wait another week, or you want to look at this again? There's no rush on this. Is there any investments really hot right now you're looking at that we need to jump on?
No, and the Pooled Municipal Board is actually not meeting in March, so that's why I said we could discuss it today, bring it back. I'm also going to bring the required documents for submission for next week.
Okay.
You know, I just wanted one more polished time to look
Very
at them
good.
again, so then you can review those as well.
Okay, good.
Mayor,
Yes. Go ahead.
Rebecca, would you talk a little bit about the size of our investments versus
Mm.
the size of investments that cities that have expanded investment authority
Sure.
and the potential for us to be denied?
Yes.
Oh.
So, as you saw from the examples I pulled, they are all larger municipalities. So, in the actual little step-by-step directions from the Pooled Municipal Investment Board, they said that for best practices, because most of those organizations pay a third party to manage their investments, which means they are losing some of their investment potential in fees, which we currently do not do. So they actually said in there that the minimum monthly average portfolio size should fall between $40 to $50 million, which is not ours. Our current and pooled investments is just a little north of 20 million. And last year's average, actually, I did the math. The average pooled investment balance for 2023 was 17.7 million for us. And that just goes with ebb and flows because of how things mature. And we tend to invest with kind of a balloon to mature right before bond payments are due, you know, getting as much interest as we can before we have to pay those. And so they said, though, that not to let that deter you from applying, because if you can prove that you have a plan, that you have qualified staff, and that you know what you're doing or getting into, to apply. And that's, so it's not a guarantee that they would deny us, but let's say you pass this and it goes to them and they say, you know, City of Ottawa, we're not quite sure you're ready or not. We still have our policy as an approved resolution, and we need that to go set up an account to purchase U.S. Treasuries, which are allowed currently under our investment policy. But right now, we'd have to do it through a third party and pay a fee. But with the expanded authority just on our books, even if we're not approved for the 4 years that the municipal pool says. We can open that account and purchase the treasuries that we're already approved to do directly.
Correct.
So that was a huge motivator to bring it to you.
Absolutely.
So,
Good. You know, if other cities our size with comparable accounts have been approved by the PMIB?
so I spent a lot of hours going through a lot of municipal websites. Let me tell you, they're not the easiest to navigate.
Okay.
But I couldn't find very many that were similar size to us. And when I tried to find people that were similar and like having utilities, small, a lot of them did spend money because they don't have the staff we do to have people manage their investments. And so I didn't find a good comparison, frankly.
Very good.
Rebecca, the information that you said you'd be bringing to us next week, will that be available prior to next week? Will it be part of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be sent to us before. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other comments, anybody? Guess we can wait till next week. Rebecca, thus far, thanks for all the research you've done on this. I know it's a lot, it can be very, very involved, and it shows your dedication, devotion to our community, so thank you for all that, but we're looking forward to next week then.
Well, I always love a good study assignment, so.
Good, yeah. I'll circle that date too on my calendar now. I'm excited about it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate your help on that. We'll move on. Item D, it looks like.
Capital projects update.
Review the capital project status. Director Landis.
Actually, I believe City Manager Silcott
We
provides
will-
the capital projects.
We will
update.
defer to our city manager then.
Honorable Mayor and City Commission. We'll start off with the slide on the upcoming projects that we currently have, which is the City Park Playground replacement that's financed out of the Special Parks Fund, $250,000. We expect that to begin later this spring. The stormwater systems upgrade, which will be purchasing new pumps and electrical systems. We have slotted in the stormwater fund at a budget of $340,000 to begin this year, although we are looking at some potential funding assistance, so that could potentially be deferred 1 year if we were able to get participation from the federal government for assistance in that. Our HVAC City Hall update from the 2022 Alpha Geo Bond at $1 million is set to begin here in the next quarter. The boiler replacement at the OMA is also set for that next quarter, and then our water line replacement for 17th to 19th along Elm Street is literally about to kick off, and we've done property owner notifications this past week, and I'll have some examples circulated to you via email for the contact that was distributed to our property owners that are impacted by that. We only had one service that's going to need to be cross-connected, if you will. That's a bad word for KDHE, but that will have a water supply that will be provided to it temporarily while this is ongoing. All the others will maintain their service. There should only be a limited duration on the day of construction for driveway access, so it wouldn't be anything more than, an AM, PM kind of window to directly access the drive during that period as well. So,
City Manager, I saw that too on that, and I'm thinking, is that a new subdivision? Is that something that? I was thinking that water
no,
line-
for Elm Street, that's actually running north-south along the city, or the county shops in the fairground there.
Okay, all right. Okay, I've got you now. I had the wrong location.
And then projects completed this year. We completed the law enforcement center's exterior envelope, the new roof, and that's now complete. However, there's some warranty work that will be undergoing. And then while that inspection, which was routine and scheduled, was underway, we identified a tear in the awning, which it was not part of the project and is separate from the structure itself. So we're getting a bid to repair that simultaneous to the warranty work that's going to be going on the roof there. So our improvements that, for the next slide, you'll see are what's been financed with that 2022 issuance. That was a total of $2.5 million in principal. And then we'll get into some additional projects down the road, which we don't have on here, but that we have discussed, which is the modernization, updating of the commission chambers here. So the diocese redesign and some of the technology, so that not everyone's looking to the left or to the right to be able to see our PowerPoint presentation, and also to allow us to be able to broadcast simultaneously the video, the PowerPoint, and be able to change slides and whatnot at that same time as well. Did anyone have a question over what I've covered so far? All right. The next slide will start the details of our ongoing projects, which is our security improvement projects, which we should have completed this week. We anticipate the final portion of the windows and everything complete with the security and pay mechanisms, the sliding slots, to be installed Thursday, Friday of this week. And then once that's done, we'll do a final walkthrough and some punch list items, but it's essentially complete. The next slide will be the Mulberry and Dundee improvement, which I'll just go ahead and skip over as we discussed that in detail previously. Our K68 access management plan, we have our final concept that has been approved, and now the document itself, following our community stakeholder engagement process, will be completed later this spring, which we anticipate being the last week or two of April. So you will receive a full report from the GBA and KDOT on that project. So we'll have that as a future agenda item in April or May. The next slide will be the airport's taxiway reconstruction design. And so, as we mentioned previously, this is a reconstruction rather than a rehabilitation. So Director Hafley and the airport board are working with our engineer and FAA for the necessary paperwork upgrades for that one change of word, reconstruction, to from rehabilitation. So that does change the intent, but the funding and everything's there. So that's the reason why that hasn't taken off yet. The next slide will be our splash pad, which we're pleased to report that last week equipment started arriving on scene. Not everything's here. We do anticipate arrival very shortly, and we anticipate construction beginning the last week of March, first week of April, and there should be a 45-day with a couple of days for weather. So if we have extended rain throughout that, it could push the construction window back, but we should still be ahead of, well, good Lord willing, and the Mayor Dezine don't rise, should be well ahead of Memorial Day weekend for our kids to be able to utilize this long-awaited project. And so I want to thank Director Hafley and Superintendent DJ for their work on this, because I know it's much anticipated. Our water tower project for Proximity Park, you may be able to see, is nearly complete, and so we look forward to it next month, giving you a kind of a near final, with the exception of maybe a few punch list items.
I was going to ask about the water tower. Wouldn't it have been easier if they had painted it before they put it up there, or is that something I just don't understand?
They have to actually, as the exterior to the bowl goes up, they want it all to be, and I'll defer to Director, to Dan. Do you want to just provide why that is? Because I know that they want the full coat going on simultaneously, but I don't understand why it's
Okay.
separate.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, if I can, if you look at the top photo, you can see all the, what appears to be brown stripes. Those are the areas that they've welded. Everything that's green on there is actually the base coat. And
Okay.
if you drove out there and looked at it now, they have sandblasted all the spots. All those lines have been sandblasted, and in the original zinc-based primer, which is what that green is. Right now today, it all looks just nice and all one color of green. So to some degree, it does come pre-painted.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and they've finished all the blasting, all the primer coating, and depending on Mother Nature, I'm gonna guess within the next week, they should be done.
Fantastic.
There's been a lot of white paint applied, but it's on the inside.
Very good. All
So
right.
their schedule is to work on the inside, and if a day comes up that miraculously the Kansas wind has died down, then they move outside.
Okay, good. Wonder on that. All right, appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the water tower is financed with base grant, so we're utilizing federal funds to assist local costs in that, so wanted to point that out. The next slide will be our water plant generator, and so there's really nothing new to report over what we had last time. So we're still hoping to get Kittahoochee approval shortly. So there's some design changes, amendments, which were largely language. And so once that's done, we're back in the short queue for the turnaround, because I know Director Riney had them actually walk it down to make sure that we wouldn't get moved to the end of the line because it didn't get turned around within the 24-hour window. The next slide will be our gas line extension, which is actually a Kansas Gas Service project, and we're not affected by that, but folks see this project, so we include that here because it is a base grant for supplying the natural gas to Proximity Park. So it is for the city and the county and our partnership with Proximity Park, but it's being paid for in accordance with our agreement with the use of a base grant. The next slide is our electric meter replacement, which you can see is currently underway. We have everything ordered, and now we're waiting for the supply chain to do what it is supposed to do, which is get here as quickly as possible. But we do anticipate approximately a 12-month lag time on that. So, which is what we saw for the 2023 purchases when the 2023 purchases arrived in October of this year. So, or of last year, I'm sorry. So it was a prolonged process. The following slide is our Northeast Sewer Lift Station, which is nearly complete, and so walkthroughs occurred there, and we hope to be able to present this as a completed project here at the next month presentation in April. The water treatment plant study is currently underway, and we're in a first draft revision process, so hopefully, again, this will be presented to you in a future agenda item in April, and we'll be having this closed on our April presentation, but definitely in May. Our power quality study for circuits 8 and 10, this is essentially complete, and we will look at presenting that to you as well. But what this does is focuses on serving the Northeast Industrial Park and also providing some additional reliability in the residential in that North Main corridor for the businesses there. So they would have their own circuit while the industrial park would have their own circuit. And so this is part of the process that we needed to do to undertake the first step. We'll have some additional steps down the road that we'll be coming to you with, but we'll keep you in the loop on that. Do you have any questions for myself or any of the directors working on these projects?
Okay, any questions, anybody? A lot of good projects going on. I'm excited to see. I did see the pump station northeast. Looks like we tore that down along K68 recently. We drove by and saw that was missing, so that's a sign of progress, right? We're getting there. Fantastic. I just think about this, so much of our city assets are under the surface of the ground. People don't see it. It's expensive, but we've got to have it, and we certainly don't want the on-ground, surface ground sewer system. I know that, believe me. But nonetheless, it's good to see this, and I'm excited to see all the progress we're making in our community. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Very good. And now the most exciting part of the agenda. Item E.
Flood insurance recommendation for 2024.
Discuss recommendation of cancellation of all flood insurance policies. Michelle.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. City staff recommends that we cancel our NFIP policies along with the excess flood policies on all covered buildings. The renewal actual for these policies begin April 10th through the end of April. During the 2024 budget preparation, Mayor Pro Tem Mike Skidmore, now Mayor, requested staff review the flood coverage increase to deductibles, potential to deductibles, or policy eliminations on city buildings. Because we have a certified levy, was it also possible that flood coverage was needed and the potential risk? If you, some of you were on the commission in 2016 when we did this evaluation. Even though the city has an accredited levy, there's still a risk for a flood event. Our city buildings are either located, or at that time, the flood designations have changed, but at that time, our properties were either in the 500-year flood zone or near the 100-year flood zone. Staff recommended that the City Commission maintain or eliminate or add insurance on buildings. And on the next slide, there's a chart that shows the buildings that are covered, either with the NFIP coverage or excess coverage. And we did add an additional building. There is a pump station that is now covered since 19. Next slide. We have had flood coverage on applicable buildings since 2012. At the recommendation of our property and casualty carrier, or broker, pardon me. After 2016, FEMA changed the flood designations, the flood zone designations. Right now, all of our properties are in Zone X. David Hamby, who's our current floodplain administrator and city engineer, provided those details, and I've placed them in this in the memo you have before you, and in this chart. And I did not detail all the buildings on the wastewater treatment plant or at the water plant, but that shows the potential hazards on all in Zone X. So next slide, what is covered by flood insurance and what is not? Flood insurance covers direct physical loss caused by flood. Direct physical damage to your buildings or its contents is covered by a flood insurance policy. Basement coverage exists, but it's for cleanup, mitigation, and if there are items that are connected to a power source, there would be coverage. So during our discussion and research, we reached out to the Kansas Division of Emergency Management Division, and I spoke to two different staff members. Stephanie Goodman, who's the state hazard mitigation officer, stated that there's 3 different programs that would be available that they administer. And the first one is hazard mitigation assistance. it's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP, Building Resilient Infrastructure for Communities, and they call that BRIC, or Flood Mitigation Assistance. And she stated that most projects will fall into the HMGP or FMA grant opportunities. And she did state that the FMA Flood Mitigation Assistance Program does have NFIP as a requirement of eligibility. The Hazard Mitigation Grant Program provides funding to local governments so that they can rebuild in a way that reduces or mitigates future natural disasters or losses in their communities. FEMA allows states to access a 10%, up to 10%, and local governments up to 5% of the award for management and administration costs. On the BRIC program, it's an annual grant program to help implement and hazard mitigation projects or to reduce the risks from disasters or natural hazards. Financial assistance is available for eligible and reasonable indirect cost and direct administrative costs or expenses. Okay, next slide. The FMA Flood Mitigation Program provides annual grants for funding to local communities to reduce or eliminate the risk of repetitive flood damage to buildings and insured under NFIP. Funding is also used for technical assistance and management costs. They're pretty clear. The sub-applicants must be participating and in good standing with NFIP. Another program which Devin Tucking-Strickler with KDEM provided information to me on, another representative. The PA program is to provide assistance to local governments so that communities can quickly respond and recover from major disasters or emergencies declared by the President. FEMA provides supplemental grant assistance for debris removal, emergency protective measures, and restoration of disaster-damaged publicly owned facilities. Now, there is a cost share, and they call that a FEMA cost share. And in your memo, there's a chart that shows a breakdown of what our cost share would be as an organization if we were impacted by a flood. But typically, the federal cost share is 75% of eligible activity costs, and then applicants or sub-applicants must pay for the remaining 25% of the non-federal cost share of eligible costs with non-FEMA funding sources. So next slide. Thank you. Kansas Department of Emergency Management questions. I again mentioned I spoke with Devin Tucking-Strickler, the recovery section chief for KDEM, and this representative stated that there could be impacts for dropping insurance in a flood area. For new disasters, it can cause a reduction or ineligibility for some funds on the public assistance side. If for an NFIP insurable facility that is in a special flood hazard area, FEMA must reduce PA funding when the facility is located in an area that FEMA has identified as an SFHIA for more than 1 year, damaged by flooding, uninsured for flood loss. Our buildings are not in these areas currently. After speaking with David Hamby, if the applicant does not have flood insurance, the facility or carries inadequate funding insurance for the insurable facility, FEMA will reduce eligible project costs by the lesser of the maximum amount of the insurance proceeds that have been obtained by NFIP standard flood insurance policy for the building and its contents, or the value of the building and its contents at the time of the incident. As far as our current flood coverage, we, because of the limits of our NFIP policies, the city also purchased excess flood coverage on the police, fire, and city hall buildings. The total coverage in the past has historically equated to the value of what our property policy coverage was in the event that there was a loss. And that was for both building and contents. However, at this time, the current insured values do not equate or match our replacement costs due to the costs. Our 2024 property coverage values will increase. We've already been apprised of that. Next slide. Our Tokyo and Lloyd's excess policies will not pay anything on unless the NFIP policies have paid the entire limit on building and contents. For those policies, we would have to pay $500,000 upfront. Hartford and Selective are two different policies, which are both FEMA and NFIP policies with a maximum limit on $500 for building, and we have various limits of coverage, and the same $500 on contents, and that varies as well. So there's a couple of differences. The NFIP flood coverage pays at claims at actual cash value with depreciation applied, subject to the maximum of the limit stated on the policy. The excess flood is replacement cost minus the deductible. Right now, if a flood destroys all the insured buildings and contents, the city would receive an estimated maximum of over $27 million, with the exception of everything located in the basements, unless the items meet the aforementioned criteria. The total replacement costs of all the covered buildings under the flood policies equate to over $96 million. And moving on to the next slide. With regards to the deductibles, HUB looked and contacted the NFIP carriers for the city properties to determine if there would be any savings if we could increase those deductibles to $5,000 or $10,000. The estimated average of 2.91% was what could be attained by a $5,000 deductible or 5.6 on a $10,000 deductible policy. Last year, our total flood policy expenses equated to a little over $137,000. In 2024, we've only budgeted $145,000 for flood insurance. It is our understanding that those policies for both NFIP and excess flood will increase. The city is not required to have flood insurance, even though we participate in the Community Rating System, CRS. It's a voluntary incentive program that recognizes and encourages community floodplain management practices that exceed the requirements of the National Flood Program, Insurance Program. Currently, this program provides a 5% discount on flood insurance premiums for Ottawa residents. As I mentioned previously, FEMA disaster assistance is only available when a federal disaster is declared by the president. City staff would seek recovery funds through the Kansas Division of Emergency Management. KDEM assists local governments through the application process of FEMA programs. So as far as legal considerations, Blaine Finch, city attorney, stated that there is no legal considerations other than the buildings previously covered by flood insurance will not be covered. Next slide. Recommended action. All of our buildings are in Zone X, where there are areas of minimal or moderate flooding hazards. There is a risk for a flood, but the probability is low. Due to the cost of flood insurance and disaster assistance available through FEMA, staff has recommended that we cancel all flood insurance policies. Savings of these budgeted expenses will be set aside to build a reserve for building replacement and contents. Over the next year, staff will also evaluate property and casualty coverages. So at this time, I will stand for any questions.
Well, first of all, Michelle, I just want to thank you for all your diligent research on this. It's quite an exhaustive report. Well, not exhaustive, thorough. Let me say a thorough
Yes.
report. You left nothing unturned. So none of our buildings are in the special flood hazard area, is that
No,
correct?
that is correct.
That's correct, okay. And Counselor, when you said that the flood insurance would not be covered on your comment, are you saying no federal programs would be available, or what? Make sure I understand.
If the commission makes a decision not to continue with flood coverage, whether through the NFIP or through the excess coverage that we purchase, then at that point, those buildings would not be covered in the event of a flood event.
Even if we're in Zone X on our buildings?
Right.
Okay, I want to make sure I had understood that. Very good, okay.
With insurance.
With
insurance.
Any other comments?
I guess I want to be careful about choices that we make here. I know that the dollar amount for having flood insurance is, it's in excess of a lot of people's salaries every year. And it's a large line item. It is not, I want to be careful about the public knowing that this is not a way to save cost. Because if we were to have something happen and one of our city buildings or one of the locations that is owned by the city were to be taken out by flood, it would cost a tremendous amount of money to replace. And so we are not saving money by getting rid of an insurance policy. And I think we need to be very careful about thinking about steps that we take in that action.
I guess I'm curious about, we're not saving money if we save $145,000?
If we were to have a massive disaster and City Hall were to be demolished because of a flood, I don't think $145,000 would touch this building to recreate it, is what I'm saying. So I hope that we're utilizing that money and we're taking that money and putting it in a smart place that is of some kind of a reserve, that in case there were something to have happened to one of our buildings or one of our covered properties, if our fire station were to be taken out, and that is a premium of about $18,000. I don't know a fire station that can be rebuilt for $18,000.
Well, I don't remember the flood in 51, Mayor, you may.
Almost.
But even if the $145,000 a year that we spend in insurance goes back to that 71 years, which it doesn't, it's obviously less, but that's $10 million. I could assume that this building would be close to that, if not more, to rebuild. I certainly, appreciate, all the information and how do we, what do we look at to try to save money? Murphy's Law is going to tell me as soon as we make this decision, we're going to have a rainy summer and we're going to have a flood this year, unfortunately. It's certainly, I know this has kind of been a big thing of yours. I just really want to think about it, as Commissioner Kaler said, before we make a decision.
I guess I'm sitting here thinking about this. The question keeps going through my mind is, the 51 flood was a terrible flood. Yes, it was, and our entire downtown was flooded. And since then, of course, our levee systems have been built. It's a good levee system. It's inspected I don't know how often Michael inspected annually. When we hear about levee breaches along the Mississippi, many of those are built by farmers so they can farm ground next to the river, and those aren't Corps built, and then nor are they inspected, I would guess. And so those, many times you hear about levee breaches, that's what those are. To cause a flood here would involve a levee breach, and it's been tested many times, and it's proven to be holed up. I guess my question I keep going back to, many of our downtown merchants up and down the street, I don't think any of them carry flood insurance because it's so expensive. And I keep going back to that question, what makes them so much smarter than us, except that we have taxing authority to pay for flood insurance? And that's where I keep coming back to, and agree, you know, maybe not do away with it, but I can agree with maybe a reserve fund setup to put this money in for the event of some kind of a loss, which I doubt. Was it 0.2% chance, I believe, that the government says we would have that? So that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to make a decision today. I think it's a lot of information to digest. Appreciate, again, Michelle, all your research.
Okay.
On that, just the one line that you said that where is it? It's the NFIP, that program provides a 5% discount for Ottawa residents. So if we were to cancel, does that have any effect on?
No,
any
it does
homeowners or
not.
anything? Okay.
And that Zone X, I'm familiar with that, being in the lending business for many years. That's where hazard insurance or flood insurance is optional. At the bank, anytime we had someone in a special flood hazard area, it was required. We couldn't even waive it if we wanted to. It was required by the law in that case. But nonetheless, all of our buildings are in Zone X. And the flood event that we had, when was that, 4 or 5 years ago in the north part of Ottawa, was kind of an unusual event. Of course, that was outside of the levee system. That was something that we couldn't control really with that 11-inch rain in an 8-hour period. Those things are going to happen, I suppose, spot floods, not necessarily citywide. Any other comments on this one? What about the city of Osawatomie? Do we know? They're obviously, in the flood zone. Do they carry flood insurance?
I'm not sure, but I can find out.
I did try to PM the mayor here a while back, and I didn't hear back from them. But if we could find out, I can't think of any other cities along the Marais that would be affected. But I just was curious if another city like that would carry flood insurance. What they think on that? Just one more option.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate all your research, and your team too, I should say. Right? Very good. Thanks. Move on to city comments or city manager's comments.
Just want to start off by saying I know our levy rating system is we're low risk of an incident occurring, which is what they call a LSAC 4, which is not the lowest, but which is very low. LSAC and LSAC 5, we're a 4, so the probability is still minimal with that. I wanted to just update you on a couple of items. The first is we currently have 6 different, 5 positions of note I want to update you on. We have our fire chief interview process occurring on Tuesday, the 23rd, and we had 27 total applicants, and we're doing 4 interviews, 4 finalists. We're going to have 60 minutes per candidate, and we'll have a peer group with 2 different scenarios for those candidates, and then we're going to have a city manager interview process with myself and some colleagues from other cities that have fire departments, as well as discussing their essays as to why they're a good fit for Ottawa as our chief. Again, that will occur March 26th. We also are currently advertising for our utility director, and so that was posted on March 5th, and so as of yesterday at the close of business, we had 11 applicants, and so we do have a pretty decent, at least initial qualification rate. Same way with the strategic communication director. So far posted on the same day, the 5th of March, we've received 26 applicants, although I'll say initially from those screenings, I believe they'll be more on the initial anticipation for the lower side of that advertised range. And the utility superintendent for our water production, which was advertised on the 21st, is currently undergoing interviews, and so we hope to have a finalist selected and announced very soon. And then just want to point out too, our ever and ongoing advertisement for our police officer positions. And so we would encourage anyone interested in law enforcement to apply. And we are also, outside of hiring, I wanted to just point out that we are pursuing actively electric vehicle charging station grants. We had that submitted this week, and there are 2 different programs. We would only qualify for the second, so if there are funds remaining for anything within the 1 mile corridor of the interstate, we feel we would be very competitive. But in and above that, we're continuing our own internal study, and we'll be looking to roll out some form of EV chargers regardless of the status of that grant opportunity for EV chargers for municipalities. And then just, I hope to have something pinned down firmly for our 2 sessions for our strategic goal setting retreat. So please be checking your phone for some messages and some dates later this week that would occur in April. And that concludes my comments for today.
Good. Okay, thank you, City Manager. Yeah, I really want to say, just add that too, that I'm glad we're looking at some charging stations. I understand we, Gardner and Emporia are the closest ones if you own a Tesla, and it's 80-mile span there, so hopefully we can get something like that or comparable to that. And there are multiple locations here in town, but I think it's going to be the wave of the future. We need those here, get people to stop and charge up and shop a little bit maybe. That would be a good thing, so. And having grants, I love grants, right? That's a bit better way to do it, so. Thank you, City Manager, for your work on that.
Yes,
Appreciate
Mr.
that.
I also wanted to point out that we have numerous citizen board applications, and so I believe we've distributed, Gloria's distributed the city board flyer that it's been out and promoted on social media. So if you're aware of any colleagues, friends, acquaintances from your work, friends, or personal lives that you would think would be a good public servant on these boards or commissions, please encourage them to apply.
That's great. Appreciate you saying that, too. Anyone have any questions of our city manager? If not, we'll start with commissioner comments. Let's start with Commissioner Clayton.
I just had one comment. I saw that we posted about the CIP citizens proposal. I think that's fantastic. I just wanted to highlight that basically getting information from the citizens kind of directly on that. On that, I was curious, there's a lot of stuff like, there's like a cost estimation, funding sources. Do all of those need to be filled out, assuming most residents wouldn't have really any idea where, like when they have an idea for a project, I'm assuming an average person will have no idea where, and are we like accepting incomplete, essentially, like applications?
That's a great question. No, they don't have to fill out everything. Some people really do have a great idea of where they think funds could come from or know of something. We just want to give them the opportunity to fill out as much as they want to about the project. But even if it's an incomplete concept, we're happy to take a look at it. And as long as they provide their contact information, we'll get in touch with them and get more information and clarity from them as to what that looks like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just had that question, and it's confusing for a lot of people to know where those funds can all come from on that. Other than that, I do not have any other comments.
Okay, Commissioner Kaler.
None at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Crowley.
I was also going to mention the board openings that we have. Gloria did set these out in front of us, and if anybody wants to see what boards there are 11 openings. You can certainly get on our website, ottawacast.gov, and check those out. There's got to be something on there that you're passionate about, and certainly if you are, please apply. Those spots need to be filled so that we can make the most accurate and informed decision for each one of those boards as possible.
Very good. Pro Tem Allen.
I have no comment.
Okay. I just want to add, too, that I had a good conversation with Sharice Davids, a representative, recently, and one thing I did stress to her was the low-income housing tax credits. Of course, everybody's screaming, we need housing, and I just want to reiterate and get in her ear one more time how important that is to that program. And so just so people know, we're looking at housing. We're not forgetting that. We haven't talked about it maybe for a while, but we're still looking at it, talking about it, and hopefully we'll get a better resolution to that in the future. So just information only right there. We've got our city commission meeting, of course, on next Wednesday, the 27th, April 3rd. We got April 10th and April 17th all on our announcement agenda. So if there's anything else before the city